everybody. Welcome to Idio Talk, a Radiohead podcast. I am one of your two hosts, Walker Glenn.
And I'm Zach Glenn.
How you doing, Zach?
I'm doing excellent. Yourself?
Good. It's nice to be talking to you for the first time all day today. I walked in here. We adhered to the vow of silence that we have to only discuss things on the pod.
We did our biker wave, though.
What's it?
Our biker wave, just kind of
you're doing something visual.
The biker wave, it's just like a subtle acknowledgement. You've seen bikers pass each other on the road. And they just subtly acknowledge.
Do they give each other like a little signal?
Yes. Yeah. So the biker wave is something that only folks on motorcycles traveling in opposite directions, they just kind of point at the ground, which is the acknowledgement.
I did not know
the audience will know, even though they couldn't see it. So.
Is this something you learned from Jerry? Is a motorcycle enthusiast, is he not? From your father-in-law?
No. I mean, this is one of the few things that I learned about as a child that I think most other people knew about at that age,
Okay, so I guess I excuse my ignorance because I just did not know that there was
have you seen
this biker code.
Have you seen the movie Dune, the new movie?
I have not.
Oh,
I will not.
Oh, well, it's fantastic. Paul and his mother, Jessica, they're like both gagged at one point, but they know sign language that like only they can read. And so it was kind of like that. Like,
wait, so they're gagged, but their hands are free?
They're behind their backs, but they can kind of go like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
I did not know about the biker wave. That's complete news to me, and this is why we started a podcast together because we have so much to teach each other.
Absolutely.
I plan on teaching you something at some point.
I've learned so much already.
I'm pretty excited. Have I confronted you on air yet about our ongoing issue, though, of you not saving things for the pod? Because I feel like, okay.
But we can refresh everyone's.
We can refresh the confrontation.
Yeah.
Just that Zach has a lot of hot takes and he really likes to spill the beans on them before we sit down to record. And I feel like I can't react in real time because he's already told me whatever his wild idea of the day. I actually think Tom is a better backup singer than a lead singer.
I mean, that to me, that's just part of being a good actor is feigning surprise, even if you already know the punchline.
Yes, but acting is reacting, and it's hard to react when I have gotten better though. This is why actors don't get their sides, which is industry talk for their lines. But our listeners might not know, Zach, which is industry talk for their lines until the day of.
Yeah.
Elijah Wood didn't walk to set knowing there'd be a ring. He just got they pitched him the project. They were like, one word, Lord. Yeah. And he said, I'm in.
And they merely gave them the biker wave to confirm
yes, exactly.
his interest.
The wizard wave.
Yeah. No, but I think that I've improved. I mean, I had a stunning revelation that I don't like surprises. I've realized I never want a surprise party in my life. And so I think I was projecting that onto you. Like, Walker won't want to be surprised by my hot take. He'll want to know of it ahead of time. And gradually I've learned that is not the case.
Right. I don't know if I like surprise parties either, but I do enjoy the surprise of an unrehearsed conversation. If you consider that a surprise. Is it a surprise every time somebody is like, hey, check this thing out that I want to say?
Yeah. Well, anything Radiohead related, though, has become a save it for the pod, though. So, I mean.
I don't know if I've ever realized how much we talk about this band off pod until it became an issue that it's like, hey, you got to save this hot take for the pod.
Yeah, and I think it's good though that you've kind of instituted that role because
but you don't respect it, but I'm glad that you appreciate it.
I do respect it. It's been a gradual increase in respect. No, because I think that there is the possibility that there might be some Radiohead burnout. I hope not, but it's obviously
for us.
Yeah, just a possibility.
No way.
I know.
Never going to happen.
But there's a book that I've read 2 times and I still don't understand it, called Everything in Its Right Place by Brad Osborne. And it's just kind of a study of Radiohead's music. And I saw an interview with him where the person interviewing him was like, so what's next? You got another Radiohead project in the canon? And he's like, I'm pretty sick of Radiohead, actually, for now.
Oh, see, that's
been researching them for years and did his doctoral thesis on their music. That's a lot.
Couldn't be us, though. It sounds like that guy was not true of Radio Heart. because I don't know. I think I like Radiohead more than I did at the start of the pod.
Oh, I for sure do. My OK Computer affection and love increased, and same with the Bends too.
Yeah, we found stuff to like on Pablo Honey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2 songs.
Famously. Yeah, that's right. Creep and the other one.
You.
That's right. And then some B-sides. Well, listeners, just go listen to the episode. We don't need to relitigate our Pablo Honey takes here. Well, it's good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, you as well. It's been a month, I think, since we've recorded.
Well, yes, but in
listener land,
it'll
time, it'll be a week.
It's been 7 days, and it's being released on a Friday. This is a departure from what we've been doing, because we've been, I would say, exhaustively researching and discussing Radiohead's studio discography up to this point. We haven't gotten burned out like certain posers who write books.
Who I really would love to have as a guest someday.
You know what? He's banned as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to have somebody who researched Radiohead to the point that they hate them on the show.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding, Mr. Osborne. You're open call.
Yeah, but
come on here and debate us. We say radio. No, this is now like a right wing show where it's like we say Radiohead is good. Change my mind.
Yeah.
I like Radiohead. Fight me.
But we are doing something a little different today, right?
Yeah, a little different. We have a guest on today. And we're gonna bring him in a minute. But I did have a bit of Radiohead news that has come like to my desk, literally. People sent me this article, and by people I mean one person, and by one person I mean Jason Vitlaso. Sent me this article.
Still though.
Still, yeah. The podcast at the time of this recording is unreleased, and it's still out there that people know to come to us with Radiohead content. Now, this article is, as of this recording, 2 months old, and it will be older by the time this is released, but I still feel like it's worthy of discussion. Did you hear anything about this interview with Johnny Greenwood, who's in Radiohead?
Okay.
One of the Greenwood brothers, the younger brother.
More talented younger brother.
The more talented younger brother, as you rocked my world with this information recently. He gave an interview in Consequence of Sound recently. Okay. Let me just hit you with this headline. Okay. Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead. It doesn't say of Radiohead. That's my editorial note that he's in Radiohead. Johnny Greenwood pretended to play keyboard for months when he first joined Radiohead.
I have.
You heard about this?
Yeah.
So, okay, this is just this is the quote right here. He said, and I'm just going to read it in my American accent right now, but listeners can imagine it with a British voice to it. But he says, Tom's band had a keyboard player whom I think they didn't get on with because he played his keyboard so loud.
He was a Pete Best.
And so when I got the chance to play with them, the first thing I did was make sure my keyboard was turned off. I must have done months of rehearsals with them with this keyboard, and they didn't know I'd already turned it off. What do you think about this?
I think he's omitting the detail that he had an end to the band through his brother. Or was Colin not in Tom's band in this story?
That's interesting because he says Tom's band, like it could be differentiating it from Radiohead.
I mean, regardless, that's a really sneaky. That's like Catch Me If You Can, Frank Abagnale type shit. Like, if you don't show that you're pretending, people will believe anything.
That's true. And the headline does say he pretended to play keyboards,
but he could play guitar great
for months when he first joined Radiohead. So I think this is Radiohead.
Yeah. Also, he's such a genius. He's probably, I bet the omitted piece is like, but, I learned and taught myself through pretending, very quickly.
Sure.
I mean,
sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have some thoughts on this. Do you think we should bring our guest in to discuss this?
Please.
Okay. So, listeners, we have a guest today. Our guest is a singer, songwriter, musician, new friend of the show. And we're very, very happy he's here. Please give a warm welcome. I'm used to introducing comedy shows,
We'll put
so
in
say
applause.
give a warm welcome. Listeners, we'd like to welcome Aaron Ross to the show. Aaron, hello.
Hello.
How are
Thanks
you?
for having me. Good. Doing great. Doing awesome.
Do you have any? Now you've been in bands.
Yeah.
Have you ever pretended to play an instrument in a band?
Maybe like pretended to play it well, and it wasn't that good.
Okay.
Sure.
I mean, I've done that before, probably.
Okay.
Maybe the whole time. I don't know.
Do you think you've ever had the wool pulled over your eyes where maybe you've been in a band with somebody for months and you're just like, that dude is the fucking sickest harpsichordist that I've ever worked with, and then years from now he or she are going to confess to you, like, guess what? You've been made the fool. I had that instrument off the whole time.
No, that's not. I don't think that could happen. I've definitely played with people that seem to be good and then turned out weren't.
Okay.
That's interesting.
So let's talk about that. Were they maybe kind of like one trick pony? Like whatever their instrument was, you saw them in their audition or when they were playing a song, like a really complicated song, but had no other range as a musician maybe? Or was it not that specific?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably all stemming from when I was like young. So it's probably just like whoever I could find and who was ever willing to do it, you know?
Right.
And then it was like, oh, shoot, but you can't play.
Yeah. How do you think Milli Vanilli's band felt? You know, they realized that they were a sham.
Yeah, it's tough too once the lineup is already set.
Yeah.
Like it takes a certain kind of personality that I think you need in bands, but like you have to be like pretty comfortable with confrontation to be like, it's occurred to me that you are bad at music. Like once you've already been in a band for a while.
The biggest example being the Fab Four. They had to oust Pete Best. It's so funny how
but they needed Brian Epstein to come along and do that.
No, I thought Brian was already on board, and it was like John kind of led the charge, being like, "This guy fucking sucks." And then they found Ringo.
I didn't know he sucked. I thought he was.
I
never
sure
really
he was
heard
fine.
him play.
John was very Machiavellian per the anthology. It seems like.
Well, I wonder if maybe there's a little bit of revisionist history there because I actually realized, who kind of falls on the sword about getting rid of Pete is George Martin.
Oh, okay.
He's like, yeah, okay, I'll record them, but this drummer sucks.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But John definitely seems like the guy who would be like kicking people out of the band.
Yeah, it's also like sadly sweet too because whenever they reflect on it, they're just like, Ringo, oh, he was great. It's kind of like hearing somebody who like cheated on their spouse and got married and they were married for like 50 years, being like, yeah, I was with her, but I just saw this.
Yeah, the whole time I was eyeing Ringo. Now, Aaron, I want to tell our listeners a little bit about your music, but before we get off of this subject completely of people pretending to play instruments in Radiohead.
Yeah.
So Zach already knows where I'm going with this. Something we talk about a lot on this podcast is what is Ed doing in the band? And
besides being good looking.
Exactly.
Well, we call him the handsome man.
Yeah, he's known on this show as the handsome man.
Okay.
They're all handsome now. They've aged into their looks. But
Yeah.
Ed from the get-go was kind of like Ben Affleck among nerds.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I could see that.
I think the biggest reveal about this article is that there's somebody admitting that they've been pretending to play an instrument in Radiohead all this time, and it's not Ed O'Brien.
But he just said I pretended for a while. I've seen him play the piano like on Karma Police Live. This is just in the very beginning, right?
I love this. Now, I have seen Johnny Greenwood playing instruments that sounds are emitting from.
But I didn't. I just saw the headline because I saw it and I was like, I don't fucking care. But it doesn't say that like this is something that persisted for years.
I don't think
right?
that the confession is
I can't play
that
an instrument at all.
I think that it is, yes, something he did in the beginning.
Okay, got it.
But I'm just like, I think that this gives a new layer to Ed.
Yeah.
Because I think that what happened here is that Ed is watching Johnny. At some point, Johnny's like, want to know a bit of cheeky fun, mate? I haven't really been playing the keyboards this whole time. And then Ed, like light bulb moment, is like, "Oi, can we just pretend to be playing our instruments?"
Yeah. Well, and
Uh-oh.
you can close that window if you want.
You sound like Damon Albarn.
Oh, is that what? Oh, good. That's good that it sounds like some human because that's my one voice. This is poorly timed.
Well, his timing's a little interesting most of the time.
Listeners,
really nice
if you
man,
can
though.
hear that, somebody's weed whacking outside Zach's house.
Yeah, it's my neighbor's father, and they fight occasionally.
They bite?
Fight
Oh,
with
fight.
each other. Yeah.
Oh.
But he's a real nice guy, but his timing is often poor with the weed eating.
Maybe possible second guest on the podcast.
Yeah. He's like
Yeah.
87.
So, Aaron, I want to put you on the spot a little bit and just tell our listeners you have been a singer-songwriter cutting albums and playing live for how long would you say at this point?
About 20. I recorded my first album in 2002, but like probably wrote those songs in like maybe 2000.
Okay.
So 20 plus years.
And by the time you started, we just wanted to talk about like Radiohead in a general way and also like songwriting in a general way. But by the time that you started recording your own music, was Radiohead like a part of your musical DNA at that point?
For sure. Yeah. I first heard them in probably 90s. I was remembering last night, probably like 97 was when I first like consciously like absorbed them. I mean, I'd heard them previously.
So that was like OK Computer era.
Exactly. Yeah, that was when I first heard them when I first really like got stoked on them. I'd heard I probably had heard Creep. I don't really remember, but I'd heard like Fake Plastic Trees or High and Dry on the radio, and I liked it. I remember liking it, but like wasn't really like super pumped. And then I went to this show like this guy was doing, and he played like Karma Police, Paranoid Android.
Oof.
I think he might have played a couple of things off the Bends too, but I just remember, and he might have told me like, "Oh, this is like their new album or whatever," and I went and got it and was just like mind blown. So,
oh, that's interesting. So wait, so the first time you heard those songs from OK Computer, someone was covering them?
yeah, it might have not been the first. Like, I think it might. I probably because at that point I think they were probably on the radio. It was like it had just come out, but I think they were, at least one of those songs was because I can't remember what the first single was. I think it was Karma Police, maybe.
I think you're right. Yeah, which is
remember,
like pretty
but-
ballsy first single.
Yeah,
Weird song.
and so I had probably heard it, but it hadn't really registered. I mean, at that time, I was like kind of coming out of like I was more into like punk rock and like Nirvana and like kind of that more of that sound. So, but like when I've heard this dude playing it, I was just kind of like something registered into me, and then I was just like, damn. And then like when I heard the album, my mind was totally blown. And also like just like hearing the acoustic guitar like represented was like totally new for me. Like I wasn't really before that wasn't into like acoustic music at all. So
did you backtrack into the Bends at all? Like, you know, at some point after hearing OK Computer? Because I think if High and Dry and Fake Plastic Trees were like my impression of Radiohead, and then I heard those songs you mentioned off of OK Computer, I would really want to investigate further because those songs are fine, but they're sort of poppy 90s.
yeah.
And I think the nuggets that are a little more hard rock on the Bends are there, but not necessarily the singles, besides maybe Just. But
Yeah, Just is good. I did. I think I got the Bends after like getting pumped on OK Computer, and then I was like, for a while, I almost liked it better. Like I was just like, I really liked it for a minute. I mean, I still do, but again, just because like there was something about the acoustic guitar I was just like getting super into at that time, and like right when those two albums were kind of coming out, so it was like, I don't know. I feel like it's more represented even more on the Bends, but
yeah. So did you? So OK Computer kind of was your entry point. It seems like that was the case for you as well, right, Walker?
Yeah, we talked about it actually. I don't know. Should we like reveal the family connection here? It might.
sure.
So.
Yeah.
The
So
elephant in the room.
yeah, let's drop a fucking bomb on these people. So Aaron is our first cousin. So up through this point now, only people blood related will appear on this podcast. But Zach and I, on our first episode, spent, I'm going to say too long, talking about a VHS tape that we had handed down to us from Levi, our other cousin, that had the music video. There was a VHS tape of like MTV at noon, basically.
Right.
It wasn't even TRL or anything. It was just somebody filmed MTV.
Just random block of videos.
Such good shit.
Nice.
Yeah. And so that was like an initial exposure to Radiohead, and then my first time of them kind of like impacting me was Levi playing me OK Computer.
Nice.
So I don't know if I just have kind of my own bias about that being the entry point, but I kind of still think that if you were to introduce somebody to Radiohead cold now, that OK Computer is kind of like a great entry point because it's the middle ground of a lot of what they did before and what they would do afterwards.
Yeah, it was like the first time they started dabbling in like more electronic sounds. And, I mean, everything. I don't know, that album, and then the videos were insane. Like speaking of like MTV, like that's kind of another, probably all around the same time, but like also kind of got me stoked on them was like the music videos off that album. OK Computer.
Karma Police is such a great video.
Such a great video. I even like the video. Is it No Surprises? The one where he's like in the water tank?
It's real cool.
So, I mean, I think that album is definitely the kind of pinnacle.
So did you get to see them live, like following your kicking off your interest in them after OK Computer?
Didn't see him on OK Computer. I wish. I really do wish. Cool. I didn't see them till I looked it up last night. 2001. I saw them.
Oh, Amnesiac.
At Kid A Amnesiac, and it was at what's the place? Shoreline in Mountain View.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, I had grass seats, but it was insanely epic. Like it was so cool, and I looked up the set list last night because like.
Nice.
I had a faint idea like what they opened with National Anthem, which was epic, and then they closed with Motion Picture Soundtrack, which was like
that's
so
really
magical,
nice.
just because that was the last song they played, and it was just like it was like they were on the jumbotron and stuff too, so it was definitely like kind of an eerie moment, but yeah, that was a good show.
And was Amnesiac already out by the point that?
I can't remember when it came out because it was June. The show was in June of 2001, and I think did it come out like
that would have been
right
the
by
month
September 11th?
I thought
it did, or before. Or
Kid
after.
A came out in October, and I think Amnesiac came out in the summer of 2001. I know it was less than 12 months in between the two of them, which is why people.
Yeah, Kid A came out towards the end of 2000, right?
Yeah, so I think people were just. They kind of merged those two albums, even though they are separate things, because of less than a year is really uncommon for a band to release two albums.
And it's hard to imagine You and Whose Army being written in a pre 9/11 world. Not that imperialism didn't exist before 9/11, and not that Radiohead couldn't have been aware of it, but it just feels like a very like in the climate for the war on terror for sure getting drummed up.
That was like the timing of both those albums was so kind of crazy, just because I just remember like listening to both those albums, and then those are like defining moments, just like hearing those albums, and then also 9/11. Kind of all happening like right next to each other.
I think most of us were listening to Kid A as we watched the towers fall.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that it's kind of eerie. It's like you were kind of joking, like, imperialism, all those concepts really existed, obviously, thematically and in all forms of art prior to Kid A and stuff. But I just think it's right place, right time, and sort of inspired artists talking about the state of the world to where it really does fit together, especially in hindsight, being able to those concepts, I think, resonate as much as you can read into them. Is
the political aspect of like their music and lyrics something that you were aware of when you first got into them or responded to?
Maybe I don't really remember like when I first heard them in OK Computer, other than maybe like I used to read a lot of like magazines and articles and stuff and interviews, so I don't know how politically, and I feel like they might have been involved in like like Free Tibet or like one of those things, or like something like that. So maybe I kind of had a hunch that they were, but like I didn't really kind of fully realize probably till, Kid A or even more like Hail to the Thief or something.
Well, yeah, I think people imbue a lot of meaning into Kid A because of songs like Idiotech.
Yeah.
I'm sure National Anthem, I think, has some pretty poignant lyrics that seem.
Yeah.
And then through Hail to the Thief, I feel like they kind of maybe backed off after that album, just because the album art is so not in your face or in a good way, whatever that, it's very showing you what's on their mind a little bit, and then some of the titles of the tracks. But I feel like they've maybe backed off that a little bit.
Well, I think it's because things are so much better now,
Oh, for
and
sure.
we achieved.
their goal.
Exactly. We achieved the better world they were fighting for, and so they were like, "We've done it." Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and just to go back to, I took a peek at my phone here, and so Kid A was released October 2nd, 2000. Amnesiac was released May 30th, which, if I'm not mistaken, is that your
That's my birthday. Yeah.
of 2001. So.
Oh, so it was already out.
Yeah. So You and Whose Army, a lot of those really.
So they were thinking of you.
Yeah, they're like Aaron Ross.
Yeah.
let's give him a present.
Let's inspire a young American songwriter. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's just. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it's just interesting to see what was on their mind. Maybe not in the rest of rock and roll in the same way.
No, I could definitely sense they were like. I mean, then also, I don't remember when I saw Meeting People Is Easy. I don't remember when that came out. I think
98.
Okay, and I watched that a lot, and you could kind of just sense that they were like. I mean, definitely Tom seemed like he was pretty vocal about his beliefs and stuff. So, I just kind of, I think somewhere along the line, I probably realized they were more political than most bands. Because, I mean, at that time, other than like maybe like Rage Against the Machine and like the Beastie Boys, I guess, were like kind of involved in stuff too. But like other than that, I mean, not a lot of bands were like political.
You had like Eminem really trying to get. No, I mean seriously.
Yeah, White
you're
America.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Eminem was getting really maybe the next year, like 2002, and he was absolutely in like the most mainstream at that point, like insulting Tipper Gore and.
Oh, that's right.
Dick Cheney's wife. It was definitely nowhere near as eloquent, but it was sort of becoming more in vogue, I think.
Totally.
Sure.
I mean, I think that it's interesting to like look back on different eras of art and see how even things that like feel non-political are so informed by the like political climate that they exist in.
Right.
Like I feel like when you look back at kind of that post 9/11 haze, it was kind of, I don't know. I mean, I took a lot of it for granted at the time, but it just hung over everything.
Yeah.
And I feel like Radiohead are in an interesting position in that canon because they're doing kind of like music that I feel like is less reactive than like Rage Against the Machine, who I love, and Eminem, who I'm also a huge fan of, but they're still responding to what's going on around them with like a great deal of skepticism, which was not really the move, even for like liberals of the time. It's like we all saw what happened to the Dixie Chicks. Like it was basically kind of like you're either supposed to be doing something that takes people's minds off of this stuff completely, or doing something right, or doing
Unity.
like what U2 is doing, and it's like we're. I mean, I know U2 probably weren't like beating the war drums, but they definitely would be more in line with I think what was expected of mainstream artists of that time, of like being a part of like the tapestry of kind of like Western unity.
Yeah, and there's this book by I forget the author's name, but This Isn't Happening. It's just an exploration of the writing process of Kid A and how it impacted the culture. It's a really, really good book for this podcast. We definitely should both read it. But he talks about the show on September 11th that Radiohead played in London, and news circulated quickly in those days, but nowhere near like it is today. And Tom kind of had a meltdown, like on stage. Just sort of sad, obviously, at the loss of life, but really didn't, from a PR perspective, handle it very well. And kind of contrasting that to, say, somebody like U2, who played the Super Bowl halftime show, 4 months later, after 9/11, Bono had like an American flag sewn onto his jacket. The tone of, and U2 are from Ireland, the tone of just all mainstream artists was, and understandably so, was much more about like political unity, especially between the United Kingdom and the United States. And they were, never seemed to really ride that wave.
No, I mean, it fits in with what we've talked about with them in general, though, is they just like, for a band that is so huge, they kind of are always making non-commercial moves.
Yeah.
At different points in their career.
Well, yeah, the In Rainbows period is like the lot. I mean, the one was super monumental too,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Them basically saying fuck you to the record industry, creating a whole new model,
So we've kind of gotten into the minutia really quickly here, but I just want to take a step back and ask, generally, what aspects of Radiohead's music do you like, love, or dislike? if that exists.
Oh yeah, I mean, probably what drew me to him initially, like I would say, like I said before, like the representation of like a lot of things at the time. I didn't, coming out of like more punk rock music, like you didn't hear a lot of like piano and strings and acoustic guitar happening. So it was like all these kind of. I really like that in the beginning, just kind of like and even like a lot of their electronics. I mean, I'm pretty much one of those people that's like a fan of all their albums, really. I mean, Pablo Honey is the one that I maybe like don't love, but I pretty much like all the other ones. But anyways, in the beginning, yeah, I mean, and then like also they're like the songwriting, which I guess, I mean, I don't know how much of that like in the early days was Tom, but just like the songs, the structure of the songs themselves, like it was just totally, they're just totally unique, they're not like your standard like verse, chorus, verse, like.
Yeah, well, I kind of wanted to ask you about that too. So do you, when you're like composing an arrangement, either by yourself or with a band, do you, I know it might not be this conscious, but that's one of the things I love about them so much is the way they break convention in songwriting. And I know like Simon and Garfunkel will kind of do some of the same stuff, like having an outro or a coda that isn't related to the front half of the song. But I feel like Radiohead are incredibly unique that way. So have you ever found yourself, listening to a song by them and thinking that would be a cool way to structure it? Or do you try and totally push that stuff out when you're writing something for yourself?
Yeah, usually when I'm writing for myself, I kind of just like whatever comes out, and then to me it's like just like all the stuff I've absorbed, so like it could be all, but definitely like in those early days of like writing, I mean Radiohead was definitely a huge influence, so I'm sure, especially with like bands and stuff, like they would come out like, just that their influence would come out in my songwriting. But yeah, I don't really kind of like conscious. I mean, I do that to some degree when I'm like recording. I'll be like, oh, let's get this like a sound of like a Kink sound here, or like a Radiohead sound or whatever. Like I do that to some degree, but like I wouldn't, when I'm writing, I wouldn't consciously be like, I want this to be a
So you don't work backwards
part
from like what about lyrically? Do you work backwards ever from you have something you want to say, or a like a type of songwriting exercise even that you want to tap into, or is it just kind of straight from the dome?
Lyrically, yeah, usually. I mean, I write lyrics. I write the music first and then the lyrics, which is kind of opposite of like a lot of people do. But so yeah, lyrically, I'll take my time and kind of just go through the song and try to like fit the lyrics to the music. But every once in a while, I mean, when I was younger, I would have more like, I want to write a song about this, and I would sit down and kind of like, write it out. But nowadays it's usually just kind of whatever comes out. Or sometimes I'll get like an idea of like something, I'll be driving around and get like an idea of like a line or something and kind of start writing that way. But
Now, I know this is probably like no musician's favorite thing to do, but just for the sake of, I want our listeners to check out your music if they haven't heard it. Do you have a way that you would describe your music? Can I put you on the spot to say what it is you do a little bit?
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, it's it's hard for me to like. I mean, I usually just tell people like singer songwriter because I mean that's kind of what I consider myself like stylistically because I don't really. I mean, I love like all music and I don't really like try to play one style, but that's kind of how that's kind of what I'm about is like I'm not like the flashiest guitar player, so I kind of just think of myself as a songwriter. So I would say singer songwriter, and then like I don't know, yeah. I mean, I've heard it described different ways, but like I mean, to me, I would say like I guess folk. I don't know. It's hard to know like what because like a lot of the styles now I feel like have changed as far as like what they mean. Like
Sure.
Like emo music is like way different than what like it was when I was young.
Right.
Or like I don't even folk. Like I feel like folk now is like I submitted my songs to like an online thing, Submit Hub, and they were like, like you have to put the style of music, and I put folk, and like all these people were like turning me down because they're just like, I don't like your vocal style, or like I don't like. They're like, I like Bon Iver, and I'm like, okay, like that's your idea of folk, which I like Bon Iver too, but I'm just saying like folk kind of means something different than it did like in the 60s or something.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
I
It's
didn't
like
realize it evolved.
I don't know. It's weird like that, but yeah. So it's hard. I mean, I'd say that's what I most commonly kind of get referred to as like folk because.
Well, I was talking to Kailani, my wife, last night in preparing for this podcast. I was listening to all your albums, but I definitively Shapeshifter is my favorite.
Oh, nice.
Love it. Such a great album. But
Thanks.
I was thinking back on some of the bands I know you've been in. I remember, was it El Dorado?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's overlap with your current group. Is that right? Or?
Yeah, El Dorado was a band with my brother
drummer,
Benny
right?
and drummer Zach Peach, who he's in my band now. It's Aaron Ross and the Peach Leaves, and he is the drummer of that band.
Yeah, and that was like really like harder rock. It sounded like too. So I know you can kind of play in a lot of different styles.
Yeah, that was definitely more like kind of 70s like stoner rock, like
Zeppelin-y,
Zeppelin
flavored.
for sure. Zeppelin, huge influence, and that more in that vein. So, but yeah, and then I played bass in that band, so it was a little different of a thing.
What about did you collaborate with Hella? Was
Yeah.
it? And what kind of music were they?
They're called like called like math rock is like the most common, but I mean they're one of those bands where it's like kind of maybe like Radiohead or something. They're kind of undefinable.
Yeah, Hella, you singing on that album was an entry point for me into Hella.
Oh, nice.
Because their music really confused me.
Yeah, it is
And
crazy.
then I was able to get into the stuff you guys were doing together because it's still very weird.
Yeah,
but
for
I
sure.
feel like it's the songs on the album. And do you feel comfortable plugging that album? Even
Oh
though
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'm super proud and happy to been a part of that album.
Awesome.
That was we recorded it here in Sac. Are we allowed to say where we are?
Yes.
Yeah, of
we
course.
recorded it here in Sac. I was super stoked. Yeah, they kind of like they had the year before had toured opening up for System of a Down and Mars Volta, and it was an arena tour. And at this point they were only a 2-piece, although with that tour they had 2 other people playing with them, so they were 4-piece. But they kind of just had this push, I think, to like let's really kind of take our crazy music and kind of like market it a little more. So I think they had the idea, let's make a full band. So they added like another guitar player, bass player, and me as just singing. So it was kind of
Do you feel kind of naked without an instrument? Was it weird just singing?
yeah,
or?
it was super weird. I'd never been in a band where I just sang, and so it was a whole new frontier. And it was a whole new frontier in a lot of ways, just because their fan base is very like hardcore, like like they're super like kind of, as most fans are, they're like very obsessive with like
Yeah,
what
math
the
rock
band
breeds
means to them.
a certain kind of fan.
Yeah,
Well,
it's in the name. It's in the name.
If we haven't been clear, Hella, some of our listeners probably know them, but it was all instrumental music up
Right.
to that point.
2-piece, yeah.
Was there any sort of like backlash to them
yeah.
having vocals?
Yeah, there was like, I mean, there was some like review backlash. Like we famously got like 2 on Pitchfork. And the guy,
That's amazing. Damn it. Wait, was it not 2 point something?
Yeah, it was 2.0, I think. It was really bad, whatever it was.
Even 2.
It was really bad, whatever it was. It might have been more, but it was like around there. And the guy just tore us a new one. It was just like, said it's like a Mars Volta ripoff and like all this stuff. And then, so the guys, like the main dudes of the band were like, had the idea when we went on tour that we made a T-shirt where we just printed off the review. It was like the review on the front of the shirt. So
that's pretty punk rock. That's rad.
I love that.
I feel like I should take down my Mars Volta poster over there on the wall, but
no, I love Mars
got the boys
Volta.
there.
I love Mars Volta.
That's some cool experience though, making connections. Hella, I started a Pandora station from them, and that turned me on to the band Pinback that I know are also in the math rock vein. So that's a cool genre of music.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say. I mean, I listen to that album already being a fan of your solo music, so I guess I had a little bit of a bias towards liking it. But I would say, what that Pitchfork guy is maybe failing to realize is that Hella is not like the most easy to access music,
right?
And like I said, I had seen them play like around Grass Valley before.
Right. Yeah.
And been really like astonished by like the musicianship that is on display. And I don't feel like this is negative of me to say. I think it's by design. It's also like, I was like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know what I'm saying.
I don't know what this is. It's really crazy music and really out there. But then hearing what they did with you as a vocalist, it kind of was a key to unlocking some of their other music. And I've gone back and listened to I think it's their self-titled record with the like California flag bear on the cover.
That's it's called Hold Your Horses.
There you go. Yeah. And it felt like, oh, okay, I get it a little bit better now. So, I would say that was probably there had to be other people who were unfamiliar with what Hella was doing that were then able to get into their more esoteric music by them having a vocalist and,
sure.
songs that had like more structure to them.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of people that were like, kind of came to the band from that album just because it was more accessible. And it was just like mostly the hardcore fans, especially when we went on tour. Like there was a lot of nights where people were like booing and like heckling me, especially just kind of being like, I don't know. People are just, but that's just fans for you.
Yeah.
Did you find any? Let me ask this as a question. How did you feel about that at the time? Was that challenging?
Yeah, it was super challenging. I definitely was hard for me. I had a hard time with that just because I was like, at the time, like when I got the gig, I was just kind of like, okay, if this is it. I've made it. I finally made it. And then, I mean, I guess it was a learning experience because I realized after touring and doing all that it's just not that easy to make it in the music industry. So it's
what period of time were you a member of the band, and how long did that go on for?
This would have been 2000. I think the album came out in 2007 or 2007, and then we toured that same year. So yeah, we just did one 6-week tour around the United States, which was really fun. So it was a really good experience, and I would do it again if I could.
Do you make some cool like musical connections with some of the bands that you're playing with, or find that you learn new things?
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, I remained, or I still am, working with Spencer, who's the guitar player of Hella, and we continued on to make. And we had a band together called Solos, and we made a couple albums, one of which we recorded down in LA, and we recorded with this producer from the UK named Guy Massey, who worked at Abbey Road for a while and like did a bunch of rad shit. He actually worked on the Bends.
Oh, cool.
He was one of the engineers. So yeah, that was a really good experience, and we just kind of we did a tour with Pinback, who you were referring to earlier, which was really fun.
Yeah,
and so it was a good experience, and just traveling and touring was so much fun. Like I'm always just like, I want to do it again someday, I hope. So,
And if people want to hear that Hella album, it's called "There's No 666 in Outer Space."
correct, yeah, which
Great
is a
title.
weird.
So great.
Did you name it?
No, that would have been the drummer. Me and the drummer Zach Hill, who also went on to start another band called Death Grips.
Big
which
fan of
got
Death Grips.
They're actually pretty
crazy.
big.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So probably a lot of people got into Hella from Death Grips, but yeah, we collaborated. We wrote the lyrics together. So
okay.
There's No 666 in Outer Space was his contribution, and then it became the album title. So
Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
And have you ever been vindicated with that bad Pitchfork review? Has there been any
Good Pitchfork reviews.
No, I meant like I'm thinking specifically of Pitchfork did this thing last year that I thought, or maybe it was earlier this year, but whatever. In recent history, Pitchfork did this thing that I found really ridiculous, where they were going back over old reviews.
Oh yeah.
And
I remember this.
the thing was album scores we could change. Album scores we would change if we could.
Yeah.
And it was the most ridiculous thing to me because it's like, well, you can.
Yeah.
First of all, like these are not.
You're about to.
Yeah, this is not the Ten Commandments. Like
This is your
not
site. by the way.
exactly. It's just like if only there was a way to
do an
change these.
op-ed.
But then also it would be like, all right, well, you know what? Originally we gave the Strokes this it a 6.7, but looking at it now, this is like really more of a 7.1. And it's just like, what the
Thanks
fuck?
for that little bump.
Yeah.
Yeah, so was There's No 666 in Outer Space relitigated during this time, Aaron?
I mean, somewhat. I mean, I guess like stupid me. Through the years, I've definitely like Googled the album and just to see what people are saying, and not a lot. But then there has been some like Reddits and stuff where people are saying positive things like, "Oh, this album," just positive reviews, which makes me feel good. I mean, it's no Pitchfork review, but yeah, I was kind of hoping for a minute. I read that same article and I was like, maybe they'll do the Hell album, but no, I think they're good with that review. They're going to keep it.
They would if they could,
Right.
but they can't.
Yeah. Well, I want to. So that was Hella, but you mentioned the group you're currently a part of. What was the name again?
Aaron and the Peach Leaves?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and you guys are currently touring together, writing music?
Yeah, we're touring hopefully when things get going and get some touring going. But yeah, we recorded an album, came out last year, and then we're going to start working on another one
Nice.
soon here. So
Well, tell the
Same
folks
idea.
the name of the first album.
it's called Swan Songs Volume 1, and yeah, it's just basically a collection of like all my songs like through the years, and then with a band, kind of like reinvented with a band behind them.
Yeah.
So
I've seen them live, and I can attest how rocking it was. It was a great show.
Thanks, man.
And I
Appreciate
told
that.
you this off mic, but I'm a huge fan of that new record.
Thanks.
And as somebody who's like followed your music through the years, I knew most of the songs. A couple of the songs were not previously released, right? Or were they all?
They're all released except one, the first song, which was like the main single, Catch a Glimpse. That
Yes.
actually, it was on an album, and then the recording was like so terrible. I took it off the album. So currently it's unreleased. But yeah, other than that, they're all songs, some new, some old, like kind of just all through the years. But
And so is the next album Volume 2?
Yeah.
And is it kind of the same concept of going back, taking old songs and fleshing them out with a band?
yep, yeah, we're gonna do another volume of the same idea, and this one's gonna have more. This one so far is more newer than older, so it's gonna be.
Oh, cool.
It's gonna even have probably a couple songs that were on another album that I put out last year that was just a solo album of mine called The Pursuit of Happiness, and that one we're doing a couple songs off that one with the band. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, it's more on the newer side, but yeah, still the same idea as far as like a reinvention with the band.
So you're not digging back and pulling more oldies out of the catalog? Is that as far back as you're going, or?
There's a couple old ones on there. Like there's one off my first album, and then there's some couple other old ones. We want to do more. We're just kind of limited as far as because we want to do them on vinyl, and then like stupid me, like I write all my songs. Up until recently, all my songs have been like super long. Like I just can't write like under 5 minutes, which is like a long song. So when it came time to making vinyl, we just found that we can only fit 8 of my songs, like relatively on a vinyl. So we're kind of limited as far as. So we want to do more oldies. Just maybe we'll have to wait till another volume.
Do you find that your songs have a longer average runtime because of the amount of lyrics you're trying to pack in, or do you have a melody that you get really hooked on? Like what is where? You
Well, they're all 6 BPM, right?
Exactly. They're super slow.
These are just like Gregorian chants.
Yeah, they're like super slowed down. No, they're
normal tempo listeners.
No, for me, it's mostly lyrical. Like I'm always trying to pump. Like I don't know. I'm always like that's too short. Although recently, like I wrote a bunch of songs, and they're all like the longest one is 4 minutes. So I feel like I'm finally figuring out how to write short songs. Because I mean, let's face it, most of the famous songs ever are like short. You know,
I mean, it could be. This is something. That Walker and I talked about maybe in the OK Computer episode, but just to bring it back to the boys, but
the boys in Radiohead.
The boys in Radiohead, yeah,
gotcha.
But Tom specifically, since he's the primary lyricist, have you ever read the lyrics to pretty much any Radiohead song and I found myself surprised so much by the length, like because they can elongate. Like I think about like a song like They're There or there's just they'll repeat a lot rather than having like Roger Waters style, chapter book of lyrics within a song. Right. And I really admire that because I think that can sort of you can enhance the sweetness of like a really beautiful line. I think for sometimes when artists overwrite things, I'm thinking of Roger Waters again, but a lot of lyricists do this where it's like, yeah, you got some good stuff in there, but you packed so much in there. And for me, I think that's really inspirational, whether it's in songwriting or poetry or whatever, that they find a way to kind of wrap the melody around it and rather than, packing it with so many words.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's ever stood out to either one of you.
No, I would agree. Like, I think, I'm a fan of like lyricists like Leonard Cohen or Bob Dylan or something too, have like long songs.
Yeah. Dylan was sort of the master of that.
Yeah. Or, anybody, or like Joanna Newsom has like really long, beautiful songs with lyrics. But like, I don't know, there's something impressive about like, and not a lot of people do it well. Like I feel like Tom, I don't know if he was the main lyric writer, but like his lyrics are very, like they're poetic, but they're like, yeah, like you said, they're minimal. Someone else who's really good at that is like Jeff Tweedy from Wilco. Like I feel like his lyrics are like very minimal, but they're like super poetic and like kind of beautiful. So I definitely like for a long time I've been wanting to do that myself. I've just always been like kind of more on the Dylan side of things. Like I got to pack more in there. This doesn't tell a story. But I'm getting more like kind of more poetic with it. Like I feel like more recently.
But it's really impressive, though, to be able to do what I think you do in a lot of your songs, which is take the same poetic rhythm or the same melody and have the lyrics not repeat and do an 8-minute song. I really like that. And in fact, like no shade on the boys in Radiohead, but I think that might even be more challenging than spreading 3 sentences out over a 5-minute song.
Yeah,
true, that's true. That is true.
Certainly a different challenge.
Yeah,
I don't want to put you and Radiohead up against each other. You guys can exist as allies, but I'm just saying I think it might be harder to tell a whole story with the same melody.
Yeah. I hope that came across correctly. I was just comparing. Because I think I would just kind of echo what Walker said. Like I do feel like I have a sense, like sort of linearly as the songs take me through, but kind of like listening to Dylan, you can get really focused on, oh, what does this mean? And kind of have to make up your own meaning, but you always feel like you're going on this journey. I think a little bit with your music, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I think with Radiohead, like. Because I saw an interview with Tom like not long ago, and he said, which makes sense because like they were talking, I think about like Dylan or something, and then he said like he kind of prefers Neil Young to Dylan, which makes sense because Neil Young's lyrics, I thought he's another person who's kind of a master of like he doesn't have like a ton of lyrics, like his lyrics are minimal, but they're very like they're moving, like his, and memorable. Like people, he's one of those lyricists. So that would make sense that like Tom's more of a leaning more towards that side of like lyric style. I feel like.
Yeah, he's definitely like a yellow legal pad with just like a few lines scribbled on there, and it becomes this gigantic song. I think a lot.
For sure. No, both are cool. Yeah, it's just hard. It depends who it is, I guess.
It's interesting, like the amount of kind of different approaches that can be taken with song lyrics. Like, I love how kind of opaque they can be and how much of yourself you can project into it. Because I'm thinking about what Dylan does with like a 12-minute song like Desolation Row,
right,
where it's so specific, the references he's making, the word pictures that he's painting, the things he's saying, but anyone who's like listened to Dylan talk about his own work, he at least claims to have no idea what the fuck he means by any of it.
I don't know.
Yeah. And I love that because it's like people have, myself included, like all his fans, you go and you imbue it with so much meaning.
For sure.
And then he's a little bit kind of dismissive of it, or kind of even fucking with people a little bit and then Tom York says so little in his lyrics in terms of actual word count. It's really low.
Yeah.
But when he says such a pretty house and such a pretty garden and no surprises, to me it's like somehow the most heartbreaking thing that's ever been said. So I love both approaches. I guess it's just like how well you do it.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I don't think one is superior to the other, and I love it both a lot. But
right, it's execution of the yeah, because both can kind of make you feel the same way. It's just kind of they're the way the person chooses to navigate it. But
yeah, and I have a sneaking suspicion that like Tom might know what he means more than Dylan knows what he means, but it doesn't. It doesn't really. The end result. That's like if I can be a dork here, just say that's like the magical thing about music. I guess is like once it's out of the creator, it really is such a like deeply personal thing to each person listening to.
Yeah,
it.
I think about a song like Bohemian Rhapsody or whatever. The lyrics are really, they're so passionate and they resonate obviously with tons of people, but if you really kind of break it down and study it, it's like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, there's obviously all great music can inspire that feeling.
It must have meant something to him, even if it wasn't like a direct person or character, like maybe something that he saw or something that inspired him to write that song. It means something to him, but then, I mean, it seems like most songwriters anyway, are like very few of them are like super personal, where it's like, I mean, maybe like Taylor Swift or something, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like where it's like, this is my exact life in a song. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
I think Billy Corgan maybe would be like a sort of a more recent example. And we've joked about Smashing Pumpkins a bit on the show, but I do just want to say in terms of 90s bands and 90s output, I think there's a lot to love there for me. But he is somebody too, where I'm like, oh, this person is a poet, a dark one, but on those two albums like Siamese Dream and Melancholy, I think there's a lot of densely packed sort of darker poetry that is pretty straightforward with its meaning, maybe too at times.
I was thinking of when you said most people are not strictly personal. I think you're right. And some of the more literal songwriters I think are like Brian Wilson.
Yeah, for sure.
Who is like, clearly has such a different mind, like that it still comes out in this into strange poetry, but like famously he wrote a song that's directions to his house,
right?
And then like Vegetables on the Smile Sessions is literally about like he'd recently become a vegetarian, so the song is just like vegetables are good. And then maybe like later era John Lennon,
right? Yeah, for sure.
I think I love John Lennon's solo work, but I think maybe where his music starts to, for me, suffer a little bit in quality is how literal he became, like just how much of
like
a
Jealous
diary
Guy
entry.
and stuff. Supposedly, like it was like spot on to like, or he even said that it was like he actually did those things, which people are like, whoa.
Yeah, and I sort of get let down when these artists that we've loved forever do explain the meaning of a song, and it's usually like one of three things people have imbued like a song. Oh, well, it's about this, or like You're So Vain, the
I was thinking of the
Carly
You're So
Simon
Vain
song, like
example,
it's either
yeah.
about James Taylor or this or that. Like it's sort of like Tarantino saying what is in the suitcase in Pulp Fiction. I'm like, I don't want to know because I don't think you knew. I think you were brilliantly touched by something, and now that you're explaining it to me, it kind of removes some of the magic.
Exactly.
And that can either happen when an artist directly says, the song was about this, or like my Tarantino example, it sort of removes some of the magic for me a little bit.
It's like how J.K. Rowling, among all the shitty things she said over the last decade,
Harry Potter again.
Yeah, she loves. Yeah, I know we've talked about. She comes up way too much on this. She like when she. I did think it was interesting to say that she saw Dumbledore as a gay character.
That one. Yeah.
That was fine because I felt like it was like already kind of there in the books, and it was just her being like, yeah, if you thought that, you're right. But like, she'll just come out and be like, interesting thing about Ron is during this whole scene, he's thinking about pie or whatever. And you're like, I don't know. I don't need to know. She's like kind of always telling like the actor secrets of all the characters. And it's like, this is ruining my...
TMI.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Leave a little bit of the magic, Rowling.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'd like to just shift gears just a touch here.
Away from Harry Potter?
I mean, we could stay as long as we want. Are there? So has your favorite albums or kind of era of Radiohead maybe? If that's how you think of music in terms of favorites or not, I'm pretty binary that way. But have those albums at all like shifted over time for you? You talked about like how OK Computer was the entry point. But my sort of like top two albums of theirs is a little bit on rotation, omitting Pablo Honey as well. And I was just curious if what you like to listen to the most from them has evolved or changed over time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's see, like I love, even like stemming, or even I like going to like solo work too, like or more like Tom's solo work.
Yeah. It's really good.
But yeah, I think like, obviously OK Computer was what kind of got me into him initially. Loved Hail to the Thief.
Yeah.
But then like, yeah, I mean, I've kind of stuck with them the whole time. Like, I mean, when a lot of, then like some of the, into their more electronic stuff, a lot of people were like, fuck this shit. Like, we're out of here. This has like no guitars. What? I'm out of here.
Right.
I even liked a lot of that. And like In Rainbows, I mean, I don't think In Rainbows is my favorite of their electronic time period, but I love just kind of what that album did. Like, I remember just kind of reading, I think I was actually on a tour when I read the news that they had like, that they were, I don't even remember how it went. Did they just drop the album and say it's free, basically?
They did
you
a
can pay what you want
model. Yeah.
Only 2 weeks in advance of the release of the album.
That's what it was. Yeah. And then everybody was just like, what? And then like the record industry's like, what? What just happened?
You're mad.
What just happened? So it was such a like monumental time. And it kind of just was like, oh yeah, why can't we just like charge what? Why do we? And then Bandcamp, that's when I kind of just really started selling a lot of shit on Bandcamp. And Bandcamp kind of took off because it was just like, yeah, you can just put your stuff up there and people can pay whatever they want. And most people pay more than what your would charge for it. So
yeah,
it's so genius,
Yeah, like comedy too. Like Louis C.K. and Jim Gaffigan and a lot of other artists started doing the pay what you want model too. And
yeah, everything, movies.
It's really cool.
No, so it was just kind of like, I feel like, but yeah, I even liked A Moon-Shaped Pool, honestly. Like, there were some good cuts off there. So I kind of like, I mean, they're one of those bands where I'm always like, anything new they put out, I'm gonna listen to The Smile. I'm gonna listen to Johnny Greenwood's like scores. I mean, I'm kind of just like anything they do, I'm kind of like here for it and want to hear it. Tom's Suspiria soundtrack was amazing.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy a lot of their solo work as well. I have to be in kind of a different state of mind for Radiohead solo work. Like I do like what's the name of Tom's first? Is it his first? Is it Black Swan or
The Eraser? Or no,
The Eraser?
Yeah, The Eraser.
Yeah. I think Black Swan might be a song off it, but I really like The Eraser a lot, and I really like Johnny Greenwood's film scores. It's especially like the There Will Be Blood is cool to listen to because it's so much like
amazing.
Christos Ponderesky from who did like The Shining and some other great work. But it's kind of just a totally different state of mind that I put myself in to investigate that.
Yeah. His Punch Drunk Love. He did Punch Drunk Love, right? That one is.
That one's actually John Bryan.
Oh, that's right. I just remember that soundtrack was so jarring.
But
because they went. Because remember, I just listened to that interview you sent me on the Smartless podcast, and he said he was there, or that's when they met P.T. Anderson.
Right.
So he was involved in some way, but I don't remember what it was.
Well, that's where he met him, and the title Punch Drunk Love is taken from a Radiohead song.
Oh, that's right.
And then it's a B-side from, I want to say, OK Computer.
No shit.
And so P.T. Anderson was a big fan.
I had no idea.
And
dropping Triv.
Well, I think what's interesting is that P.T. Anderson really, he was pretty revered at that time, like kind of hot on the scene. Magnolia had come out. So, he was a serious filmmaker, but the tonal shift in his movies and just the exponential increase in quality, I think, starting from collaborating with Johnny Greenwood on is really profound. I think his next movie was There Will Be Blood, which I think is just one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to take away from Daniel Day-Lewis or P.T. Anderson, but I think the music plays a really big part in that. It's just really powerful.
Does. It totally does. Man.
When I first saw There Will Be Blood, the moment that I remember seeing in the theater, because I knew nothing about it other than that it was the new P.T. Anderson movie, and that that was it. That was like enough, basically. And, it being such a departure from what he had done before, the moment where Daniel Plainview has like broken his leg down in the mine, and he starts, and it's been no score, I think, up to this point. You've just seen him. There's only been the diegetic sound of him working.
Right.
And he's gotten out, he's found oil, and he's kind of pushing himself backwards on his butt across the desert ground with his broken leg, and the camera pans up to those hills, and that like weird atone, like detuned, like comes in, and that was the moment where I was like, this is gonna be a fucking trippy movie, and I'm very like, it just sets so much unease right from the top. I love Johnny Greenwood soundtracks.
Oh, he's genius, man.
Listen to the what's the dress movie?
Phantom Thread.
Thank you. The Phantom Thread score all the time. It's so good. A movie that did not have as big of an impact on me, but I still love the score.
Yeah, the movie was,
Have you seen Licorice Pizza yet?
No, I want to. Is it good?
It's great.
Yeah, I hear 10 out of 10. Recommend.
Yeah, really delightful.
I have not seen it either. I plan to, though.
I didn't see did I see? Oh, yeah, I saw Inherent Vice. Never mind.
Yeah. That's the one's that up and down for me, but I've come to like it a little bit more than I used to.
Yeah, I really like the Pynchon books I've read, and that's one of them, but I don't know that it like translates to the screen for me.
Right.
There's something about like reading his stuff is so strange that I'm able to kind of like suspend my need to feel like I literally understand it. But when I'm watching it in a movie, I'm kind of like more frustrated by the fact that I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, for sure. I could see that.
But yeah, you were talking about kind of, which albums you gravitate to the most. And I found the same thing. Like, I really, really, really enjoy Amnesiac.
You'd say that's your favorite?
No, my favorite would probably have to be OK Computer.
Okay.
I was just saying I've liked pretty much every album, even the electronic ones. But I love Hell to the Thief too. I mean, that one really got me too when it came out.
Yeah. That one is I think criminally underrated, but I don't really know if they have that at this point. I think people are very positive on Radiohead overall, but I think any great artist is you can kind of get new meaning out of something, within their catalog. It's sort of the fun of going back to it. And like you were talking about Walker, you were saying, with Aaron, like you've kind of resurrected a lot of these older songs with your band, and it's interesting too. On a Moonshaped Pool, I think like True Love Waits. I've always preferred the older versions, the kind of bootleg copies, compared to what's on the album. But it is cool that they sort of gave the fans like that satisfaction at some point. I like that album a lot too.
It is good. Yeah.
Moonshaped Pool is really good. It has moments that are with Radiohead, with the moments with them that don't resonate with me as much. It's never because it's bad. It's almost like for me the standard is so high that if there's something that just doesn't actively engage me, and Moonshaped Pool has a couple of those moments where I'm just like, this is pretty or whatever, but it's not pulling me in as much. You know?
Yeah. Dex Dark would probably be the peak for me because it feels like it hits all the right buttons for me. As far as I wish it.
Sounds like an OK Computer song.
It does. One thing with the Moonshaped Pool that like was a little bit of just a touch of a letdown was that it did feel like it was a little bit of a return to form, but the return to form being slow, sort of ambient Radiohead. And I do miss what we even got in the digital era of like on Amnesiac. Sure, it's in the Kid A mode of this sort of newer Radiohead, but you have like I Might Be Wrong on there. You have like Spinning Plates. You have just a little bit more of what you can feel like is a full group effort. And I think that might be what's missing a little bit from some of their later stuff. But I don't mean to take us too far.
And the artwork kind of got weird. I feel like
I don't love the cover either.
I feel like post Hail to the Thief, the artwork's all kind of not bad, but it's just not. I mean, like all those like OK Computer to like Hail to the Thief, all that art is like amazing.
It's all Stanley Donwood.
Yeah. And then I guess I don't know, I think he's been part, or maybe just been art director or something on, like, I think he was like part of Moonshaped Pool or something. I don't know, but it doesn't look like his stuff.
Yeah.
I was surprised by it. For me, the peak of that collaboration is Hail to the Thief. It's just so creative and different, and if you get it on vinyl, or if you bought it on CD, there's so much fun stuff to look at too within the lyric book. It's really
but that
great.
cover is a Tom painting, right?
But like they worked on it together.
Okay,
it's like a 30-minute YouTube video of them just kind of going through it, and I also
cool.
I watched a video with an interview with Tom recently. May have been actually that Smartless interview, but he talks about one of the reasons that the Smile, the Johnny Greenwood and Tom York new collaboration, the reason that the release has been delayed is due to album artwork.
Oh, okay.
And he's just taken that long on it. So it seems like something they take incredibly seriously.
Oh,
is Donwood working with the Smile, or?
He didn't say. He said that he kind of acted like it was on his shoulders the way he answered the question, but I'm not sure if it's something they're collaborating on together, or if it's something Tom is undertaking.
Aaron, that's a question I'd like to ask you. I've seen you do visual art before that I think is great. Have you ever done any of your own album covers?
Thus far, have I? No. I mean, I've designed some of them, like put them together, but like no, all the ones a couple of my friends have done, or one of my friends did 2 of my album covers, like paintings, and then another friend did 2 of my other albums that were paintings. So. But yeah, I haven't done any of my own, but that might change soon. I have some ideas of some stuff that I might do on some future albums, so maybe soon.
Okay, cool.
If I ever come back, I'll be able to say yes.
Okay, great. Who did now this is Zach said his favorite of your records is Shapeshifter, and this is another area that he and I have some tension between us. My favorite is Beginner's Blood.
Okay.
And somehow we
Nice.
put our differences to the side and managed to come together on this. But who did that cover? I really
Beginner's
like
Blood.
cover.
That was me, but that wasn't a
Hey, look at that.
painting. I guess that was me. I wasn't thinking, but that wasn't a painting. It was just. I guess it kind of was. It was a collage that I made, and then I just scanned it into the computer.
Mm-hmm.
But so I guess
But
guess
what
that
a
counts.
fortunate thing though that I was like, now here's one of my favorite album covers, and it is the one that you did. That couldn't have worked out better.
That wasn't planned?
No, not at all. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't thinking on that.
No,
one.
no,
Yeah,
that's
that
okay.
one. I guess that one I kind of did. That counts. Collage counts.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's the cover of the record.
Yeah. So yeah, that's so far that's the only one I've done, but yeah, I'll probably want to do some more. So,
Mm-hmm.
All right.
but yeah, I don't know. Album art, I've definitely been a fan. I mean, that's always kind of, you know, been important to me as far as like my own stuff, but also just like through the years. I mean, guess the generation that I come from, just like, you know, buying physical music and just looking at the album art and the liner notes and all that. That's like such a huge part of it. Or the back cover, you know. I was like talking to someone recently. It's like nobody cares about back covers anymore. Like a back cover used to be like just as important, you know. Like in the classic days. Now nobody's. No, I mean, maybe they are starting to now that people are selling vinyl and CDs again.
Well,
but.
This is a question I wanted to ask both of you. I'll ask the guests first, but so yeah, as you mentioned, Walker, you know, you guys are both older than me, but I think I struggle with the same thing that a lot of people do, which is listening to new music. So, you know, you're obviously active in the music scene, so I'm sure you get exposure, you know, through live music, maybe more than the average person does, certainly more than me, but I find it incredibly hard to listen to new music, not because I think music sucks now or any garbage like that, but because of you know, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. And I find myself going back to the well of what's familiar. And obviously we love Radiohead. They're always going to be one of my favorite bands. But even when I'm in an exploratory mode, you know, I'll be like, oh, you know, I've never listened to Joni Mitchell, you know, or you know, never in earnest. Or recently I'm a bit on a Bonnie Raitt kick, you know, and you know, Dylan was like kind of a later in life discovery for me as well, and same with like David Bowie. But those are artists that go all the way back to the 60s, you know, peaking kind of 60s, 70s maybe. And I just have a really hard time without kind of getting that visceral experience of getting the CD booklet or record vinyl, whatever. And yeah, like I say, I don't think it has anything to do with music sucking now. And I was curious if either of you have that same struggle, and if you don't, like, you know, kind of you know, tips or whatever to kind of discovering new music, because I find streaming has really, really made that hard for me.
Oh, sure.
It was a long question.
No, I mean, I think that the availability of everything at your fingertips, I do think I like get into music that's new to me fairly often. It's not always new to the world, but I kind of do have to update what I'm listening to fairly regularly. What I find makes something stick for me is I am still an album guy, and I think it does come from being of that age of the physical media. Like on the way up here, I was listening to the rapper Vince Staples.
Yeah.
And I like hip hop, but I think maybe a reason I don't listen to as much of it is it's a lot easier to come by singles than albums. And with his, I was like, oh, I've like really kept up with this guy's whole discography. And I realized the reason is because each thing that he's made as a cohesive album. And he tends to drop these kind of like short, like 20-minute, maybe 30-minute albums, but they all play as kind of a piece. And that will really help me stay with an artist, because I don't want to constantly be changing what I'm listening to. I want to like be into the artist enough that I put on your album and I want to listen to it all the way through.
Yeah.
And I'm too much of a control freak for shuffle or like to not be the DJ.
Yeah.
So it's like that kind of like splits the difference for me. But I mean, watching movies and TV shows that have really good soundtracks is also a way. I've gotten into like a lot of music from the Danny McBride, like Jody Hill programs. Like all their stuff has such great music.
There's a lot of like blues, classic blues stuff, and kind of a lot of genres. But
then I do create stations from something that I like, and then pick out what I like from there. And so the digital age has made me, I think, keep up with more new music than I would.
Oh, okay.
Because it will get you into other stuff that I wouldn't have heard of otherwise. But it also makes everything so available that I don't feel the pressure to stick with something. And so there is stuff where I'm like, wow, I really love this. And then I'll come across it later and be like, wow, I listened to that nonstop for a week, and then I never listened to it again.
Yeah.
So that's how it is for me. What about you, Aaron?
Same. Yeah. I mean, pretty much exactly the same. But yeah, I've recently gotten more into like, or I haven't bought a ton so far, but I've kind of gotten. I mean, now that CDs are kind of coming back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're like slowly but surely coming back.
Interesting.
I think it's because there's like a vinyl shortage.
Yeah.
So people are just, but like I bought the new Big Thief album I bought on CD, and it was like it's a whole different thing when you buy something like an actual physical thing because you're kind of like, and that's a great album, and you know it's long, but it's great, and but it's like there was something about it, like I actually bought this, and it came in the mail, and I gotta sit down and listen to it, and or put it on my car, whatever. Like it's not like that's the one thing I don't like about the streaming is that it is so accessible. Like I heard somebody like on an interview saying like people don't listen to music in the same way that they used to because because it is so accessible. You can be like everywhere, anywhere, literally anywhere, and be listening to music, which is cool. But like you think that people used to like go to the store and get like the new Beatles album, come home, like fuck off everything else, and just like sit, and listen to the new album in full. Like you're absorbing it differently than like if you're like on a bus or you're like in a park or something. Like you're not going to be like absorbing it the same as you would be like sitting there listening to it. So trying to get more into that physical realm of like actually listening to albums, but and buying albums too. That's the other thing is like I realized I was like part of the problem because I was just like, why are nobody's buying music anymore? And I'm like, neither am I. So like I should start like buying like especially new stuff like on physical, because I feel like a lot of these up and coming bands, are kind of coming out in an era where like they don't really make money unless they tour. But I don't know. I think like the more people that support buying music, like then it could feasibly come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely am I'm same as you. I'm like more of an album-minded person, so I'm not really thinking of like, singles and stuff. Like I don't listen to the radio for music or anything, but yeah, I would agree like movies and television are a really good way to hear new music. So
yeah.
Do your kids... Oh, I didn't mean... Go ahead.
Please go.
Do your kids get you into music? You have two teenagers.
Yeah, I got two teenagers. For into some ways they have. In some ways, like, I mean, because I'm like always reading about stuff and on like Pitchfork, and even though they kind of suck, but I'm always on Pitchfork.
You have a reason to resent them.
Why do they suck?
But just like I kind of read a lot about like and they're kids. It feels like kids are just kind of tuned into like. What's happening anyway. So, sometimes we meet in the middle. They'll be like, hey, have you heard of my daughter's turned me on, and both of them, my kids have turned me on to some stuff that I hadn't heard. And some stuff, sometimes I turn them on to stuff though too. So it kind of works. Like I made my daughter a playlist threw in some like, good stuff from the 90s and just kind of all different eras. And so she was stoked and kind of found some new stuff that way, but we're going to go, and then we have some things we agree on, like we're going to go see Mac DeMarco.
I like Mac DeMarco.
He's playing in the Center of the Arts, actually, in
cool.
August. Yeah, so we're going to go. We got tickets, and we're going to go to our first show together, which I'm stoked on.
Oh, nice.
Somebody we all are stoked to see. So,
do they listen to that Big Thief album?
Yeah, they like that.
I love that record so much.
It's so good, man. Yeah, it's like it's a classic in my mind. It's like 20 songs. It's like a bear, but it's like. Every song's good, I think. Like
I agree, and it's all over the place in terms of like arrangement. I don't know if it's like a shallow comparison, maybe because of the female vocals, but it really reminds me of like a kind of like golden era Fleetwood Mac record.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Kind of Tusk a little bit, where it's just like, oh, okay, the songwriting is just really strong, and it feels like there's almost not an overabundance, but just kind of like every idea was thrown at the wall, and they just are maybe creatively at such a high point that it's working.
And
but it's not cohesive. It's really kind of all over the place.
It is, yeah. And I love the production too. Like that's a big thing I get into, like, which is like hard again with like streaming because it's like the quality is just not there. I mean, but like production's such a big thing, especially on that album. It's just like so warm, and like I like read a lot of the things, like the way each song was different. Like one song they just like recorded outside, and like the drummer was like or the bass. One of them was playing like through a speaker, like a Bluetooth speaker.
Oh,
I think it was the drummer. He was like playing like electronic drum kit or something. So it's just they did stuff like that that was
cool.
like totally like, I guess would be lo-fi, but they're like on a major label, and it's kind of like, it's a refreshing to hear something like that, like on a major label, to be like, whoa, this is a major label record. It sounds like something from like, like you're saying, like the 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
Like it has that real warm, organic quality. So
yeah. I wanted to ask you about, this is backtracking a little bit, but just about, albums versus singles and the way people like consume music now. Is that something that you think about when you're creating? Like about what the eventual audience is going to be and where they might be when they listen to it? Do you think about that or no?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, when I'm making them, I'm definitely thinking of like it being an album and not like a concept album, but like I definitely think like, oh, this is the album, these are the songs.
How they fit together, the mood.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely album minded, but yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, kind of as of late, I've kind of just been like, I don't care anymore. Like whatever, because like I did when last year when we put out the album with the band, the Peach Leaves, we we were doing the whole like Spotify, like try to get our numbers up and all that stuff. And I don't know. That kind of burned me out a little bit, got me jaded, and I was just kind of like, this sucks. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what going forward, like it kind of seems like maybe physical stuff's going to come back, but I mean, I know like a lot of the kids are like, my kids are into like physical stuff, like, records and
I'm
CDs,
super down for that to be a renaissance that comes, because from everything that I've watched a TED Talk about streaming and stuff, and just a lot smarter people than myself, and it's not very artist friendly in terms of even the artists that have quote unquote made it and are millionaires at this point, just in terms of residuals. And you think about being an up and coming artist and being passionate about music and songwriting, and you have to make a living, and going back to the way you said that you kind of will write an album, I think that's why I go to a well of artists that I know maybe had that same intentionality when they were creating an album, whether it's OK Computer or Dark Side of the Moon or, stuff that, isn't so mainstream as well. But those are just experiences from start to finish. And I love listening to an album that, each song kind of bleeds into the other and is meant to kind of take you on this journey, whether it's a concept journey or whatever. And sometimes I feel like that's missing. And I think that may be why I'm so spotty and like when a new album is released. I think the Strokes' new album, can't remember, the new Abnormal was the last album that I sat down in earnest. And even artists that I don't love, like I listened to the Red Hot Chili Peppers,
the new one,
start to finish. And they're not my favorite band. Walker really is not a fan of theirs, but it's just as musicians. Like I was so excited, and I was thinking like, how funny is it that this group of like 50 to 60-year-olds is like the first album that I did that, and I just wonder if maybe that mindset of creating an album as a cohesive narrative is something that maybe I think older people do only. You mentioned Taylor Swift. Like I don't think a mainstream artist like that is thinking about telling the story in the way the narrative and the songs bleed together. But
I don't think it's just older
wrong.
people, but I think that it used to be a given in the medium, and now it is a conscious choice somebody makes.
Right.
That's just my speculation. But.
No, I would agree. Yeah, I think it seems, it's probably like, I mean, the labels are probably telling them, don't do it, but they're like, no, this is what I want. I don't know, maybe not, but
because not just
major labels,
totally. Because it's not even just the albums back. Like people sequence their albums with the idea of sides of the record in mind too.
Oh yeah,
and I that's an interesting way to listen to albums. Also, that I didn't think about that much until I started collecting vinyl. Is it's like, you go on this arc of the start and end twice on a good album.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you also, I mean, the way, like, segues, too, like, a lot of famous albums have, like, if you listen to it on vinyl or CD even, like, or tape or something, like, there's a segue that you can catch where, like, streaming doesn't have that,
Yeah.
There'll be like a break in between, like
Well,
the
something
segue.
I learned on that TED Talk about streaming, and it's really good. Maybe after we release this, we can put it in the notes or something. 'Cause I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he was talking about very non-judgmentally, but it was ultimately I walked away from it having a lot of techno jargon for why I'm not a fan of it. But the way artists are paid now is a listener has to listen to the first 30 seconds of a song,
Right.
at least on Spotify. And what he was saying that's sort of degrading to like mainstream musical production is that you'll get the whole hook first. 30 seconds is not a long time, and you get all this information front loaded, so there's usually not a progressive build. A lot of just elements of songwriting that I think we can kind of take for granted that you get on like a Dark Side of the Moon or Mars Volta we mentioned earlier. D-Louse in the Comatorium is an album that is absolutely an experience.
Oh yeah.
So there's plenty of that, and I think sometimes that can be what's missing a little bit is music is so hooky now, and I think a lot of that has to do with artists making sure that they get paid, which I totally understand.
No, they people like major label artists probably write songs with that in mind, like, oh, you got to get them in the first 30 seconds. So like everything they do, like, because I've heard people say like just like, oh, you can't have like like it can't be, because like if your song, like if it's 30 seconds till like the singing comes in, people are like, oh
yeah,
you can't do that, like that doesn't work.
What a great way to make creative decisions.
Yeah, think about back in the USSR. Like you would get, it would just start with you would get none of that like ambient kind of stuff that puts you on that journey.
That's the magic of really. I mean, to me, like that's the beauty of a song. Like, I don't know, but yeah, I think. I don't know. It just seems like also the streaming side of things is like kind of disingenuous because like I've heard like, not heard. I mean, this is a fact that like the major labels basically own Spotify and all the streamers, and they make sure that like all their artists are like the number ones and on all the playlists, and so it's just kind of like. And then I even wonder like the world we're living in. Like I kind of think this a lot about a lot of things, but. Not to get like conspiracy theory sounding, but like,
man, you go right ahead.
I wonder how much they fudge the numbers. Like,
right?
Are these accurate numbers? Like, does Drake really have like 90 million listeners across the world, or is that just like a number they fudge to make it look like he's that big? Because I mean, whether you like him or not, I mean, I don't know. Is there are 90 million people good or
right?
There are a lot of stupid
day
people in the world. Exactly. It's kind of the same thing with Netflix. Like Netflix, it's like top 10 or whatever. It's like, well, you don't release the data and analytics to show how you measured this, and it's shocking. 7 out of the top 10 are all Netflix original releases. It feels like we're living in like V for Vendetta or something.
Exactly.
But
it's also too with Netflix in particular. It feels like there's absolutely no rhyme or reason to how they recommend things to me too. Where it's like, oh, if you enjoyed Goodfellas, you should try Orange is the New Black. And it's like, just because they're both on my TV. I don't understand the connection.
They're both in prison at some point. Like
right.
Maybe the slicing of the garlic it latched on.
It probably is like literal data points like that. Because I remember when their first original show was House of Cards. And it was like part of the promotion for that show was that it was the first like algorithmically produced show.
Oh,
because it was like what we like the most popular things on Netflix are dark political thrillers, and David Fincher was one of their
Usual
most
suspects.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and people just love this Kevin Spacey.
Right.
movie.
Gosh, man, has that show aged out of relevance?
No kidding, right? I like to. Some things so firmly exist in this, like, talking about the way art kind of exists in its political climate. I feel like if you made that show was produced in the Obama era, and if you made a show that's like, let's do like kind of a sexy thriller about the dark underbelly of Washington in the Trump era, people would be like, fuck this. Like, I have no interest in this.
Well, the way they tried to do that is just through humor. Like, you know how bombastic and crazy real life is? Well, here's a more crazier version of that.
Right.
And it didn't really hit with me very well.
Yeah, well, it's been said many different ways that like the era we're living in is getting harder and harder to satirize.
Yeah.
So,
For sure.
Aaron, I have a question for you. This is probably my last question, but do you? I texted both of you this like independently. I think when we had this scheduled a little earlier initially, I was kind of thinking of stuff. And do you have an opinion or thought or hope for what the future of Radiohead is? We're just three fans sitting here, so no pressure on this one to get it right. It's Nostradamus, but. Do you want more Radiohead albums? Are you super stoked about the Smile? What's your thoughts on that?
Do you like Radiohead?
Yeah, I think it's been established
Full disclosure, guys.
that he likes them.
I hate them. That was good.
Twist.
I mean, yeah, I would like definitely a fan. Like I said, I kind of keep tabs on everything they do. Would definitely, I'm stoked for the Smile. Kind of, I know that's not going to be a Radiohead record, but I think it'll be cool. And yeah, I think more music would be good. I'm wondering like where. I'm sure they're wondering the same thing. Where do we go from here? I mean, that kind of feels like the state of music. Period is kind of like where can it go from here? Because like I feel like hip hop, EDM, I love them, but they've been around for a while now. They're kind of old styles. And it kind of feels like what could people do that hasn't been done already at this point? And I kind of feel like, to me, like I see like the song coming back, like songs kind of coming back as like, I mean, not that they ever went away, but it feels like with electronic music and stuff, like, I don't know, just like a lot of like, nothing against instrumental music, but it just feels like songs are what lives on forever. I mean, obviously, like look at Creep, it's still like a huge song. So maybe they'll get more into like less like kind of ambient, and just more just like straightforward like songwriting.
So it's kind of the pop rock song. Is that what you
yeah,
mean?
or just more songs. I just feel like maybe people are are just more hungry for like making kind of new memories, and just like songs are a big part of that. Everybody kind of like you hear a song and it reminds you of a time in your life, blah blah blah. Like I don't know. I feel like that kind of went away for a while, and then maybe that's going to be the future of music is just like more songs. I don't know.
That's interesting.
That's just my theory, but like as far as Radiohead, I mean, maybe I could see them going a lot of different ways, but it's like it just feels like they've done the electronic thing for a while now, and as interesting as it is, it's kind of like, to me, it's getting kind of boring. Like the style EDM is getting kind of like, I've heard a lot of different EDM now. I'm just kind of like, I don't know.
Well, and can you really to Radiohead's version of EDM? It's like it's never.
Yeah, it's
never
definitely their own thing
enough to. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Put on
Lotus Flower and try
at the
D.
club.
Yeah, you're right.
Watch people get really pissed.
But that's kind of what
maybe their remix album would be the only thing. Maybe that one. Was it the TKOL or whatever? Did you ever hear that one?
Yeah,
that stuff. Some of that was pretty cool.
It was interesting.
I could see that being played in the club, maybe somewhere in the UK or something. But
yeah, I mean, I would like to see them return to maybe a little bit more traditional air quotes around that as well. But yeah, I think King of Limbs and Moonshaped Pool, I sort of got some of those feelings as well. But
neither of those have a rocker on it, do they?
No,
because In Rainbows definitely does have moments.
Body
that are,
Snatchers, Jigsaw.
Yeah, and even ones that aren't loud or like very like band songs.
Oh yeah,
but I guess I didn't ever really just consciously realize that King of Limbs is an electronic album, but Moonshaped Pool doesn't have any rock and roll songs, does it?
No, and that's
no. There's that. What's that one song? Is it the
Present Tense?
Shoot, that should happen on me.
Present Tense is the one that to me where I'm like,
it's my favorite.
It's so good, but I mean, it's just like it's very calm. It's really good. I love that song. But yeah. No, that was a great answer, man. I think they've given us a complete picture. I would be very surprised if they return to form. That's why the Smile excites me so much. But
yeah,
I don't know if you found that song that you were thinking of.
Oh no, I think it was "Burn the Wit." Is it "Burn the Wit"?
Burn the
Opener.
Yeah,
it's a great
so
song.
Good, so good.
I guess it's not really a rocker, but I don't know. It feels like a song more than a.
It tricked me. When it came out, I was like, is this like, like just the beginning of the album that's going to have a little bit more life and exuberance in it? And, I wouldn't say I was disappointed, but no was the answer.
Yeah.
But Aaron, I want to drill down a little bit, though, about the future of Radiohead with you, because not to tell tales out of school, but before we started recording, you were saying you think that we might not get new music from the band. And I was
I was playing off Zach's theory, but which I was like, I could see that also happening, but
yeah. Is there, and it's okay if you don't have an answer to this, but is there a reason that you would agree with that speculation that the band might be done making new content?
Yeah, I mean, when I listened to that interview on the Smartless podcast, and I think they did ask him at one point something, and then they were kind of vague about the future, and then, I don't know. I could just because they are like at this point, they are probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest band in the world, and I mean they can do whatever they want at the end of the day. So it's like, I don't know. I could see them either going either way, like what you were saying, like just kind of putting it away for a while, but then not really calling it quits because then who knows, 5 years they might make another album, or I could see them being like more Beatles style where they're like, let's just quit while we're ahead. We've made this many albums, they're all classics now, let's just like call it a day and then just do our solo stuff. I mean, I could see them going either way, really.
Well, I'd like to ask this question to both of you. Do you think that, and we can only speculate about this, but I am really curious what you think. Do you think that Radiohead is a band that is protective of their legacy as, kind of these innovators, these like genre hopping kind of game? They really elevate every genre that they try in terms of either its visibility or like innovation on that. You were saying kind of, to paraphrase, there's a little bit of question, Aaron, of like, what is there left for Radiohead to do? Do you think that's a mindset the band is kind of like, we don't want to do anything that's going to kind of dilute the legacy of what we've done so far? Do you think they think like that?
I could see them being that kind of band where they don't want to just make music to suffice the fans. Like, I think I could see them being just there's everything they've done thus far, and just like interviews I've seen with them, they seem like that kind of. I know myself, I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to just keep putting out music just to, I don't want to be like the Rolling Stones or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's different if you're like somebody who, like Tom Waits or Bob Dylan or somebody who's still like cranking out like amazing shit into their however old they are, 80s or whatever. But like, I feel like to be like, like more of the Stone side where it's like, we're just doing this because everybody wants us to. It's just kind of like, okay. I don't know. I don't feel like Radiohead is that kind of band.
But inevitably going to I Can't Get No Satisfaction live because that's what people want to hear.
Yeah.
I think they've done such a good job of engaging their audience to want to hear the new stuff because they space out their albums. But yeah, just for me, I don't know what the band wants, but I don't want to see them becoming every 2.5 years and don't you want to hear our new songs? No? Okay, all right, well, we'll play Creep for you, or
it's a new Radiohead.
We've let Ed write a song on this album. and it's just
one chord,
one note on the keyboard. Yeah, it's like a Brian Eno ambient song.
Yeah, it's his the one, Tomorrow Never Knows, one Beatles song that's one consistent chord. It's the last song in Revolver.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll see. I want to see them collaborate with different people, continue to do that, because I think that's the only way that they can. That's not true. I think that's one of the ways that they can continue to be really engaging if they're not going to make more Radiohead stuff. Like, I'm not the biggest Atoms for Peace guy. I haven't spent a ton of time listening to them, but I think the idea of Tom York and Flea is really interesting.
The drummer guy too. I forget his name.
The drummer is amazing.
It's I forget his name, but he's really good.
Yeah, the execution though is too much Tom Yorkie, Nigel Godrich. I'm like, where is Flea on this?
Yeah.
And like I said, I need to do a deeper dive, but that's just kind of the general impression I have. But the Smile has been so engaging to me because I hear some punk rock in there. I hear some just a lot of Radiohead remnants too. But knowing that it's almost like a different delivery system to me is really exciting. But yeah, we can only speculate.
And I'm having more of like a petulant child of divorce reaction to it, where I see the smile coming in and I'm like, you are not my dad.
Well, I mean, I've had that too.
I actually really like the songs. I won't repeat my whole thing about it because me and Zach covered it. But I am of the mindset of, if you have Johnny and you have Tom, I don't understand why these can't be Radiohead songs and they can't teach them to the other three guys.
Yeah, that is a good point. Why don't they just make that? Because that would be a departure. If like the Smile songs were the new Radiohead album, that'd be. I mean, it would be different than anything they've done, really.
It's different, but it's not. It doesn't feel like what they're doing with the Smile is so disparate from the Radiohead catalog that it couldn't be of a piece. And my theory is that maybe the reason it's not Radiohead songs is the very same reason that I'm disappointed it's not Radiohead, which is just that now when we tour, we just get to do this new stuff. We don't have to do Radiohead songs.
Could be that.
And I want to see the Smile live. I think that would be amazing, but I am annoyed that the whole time they're doing it, I'm like, well, I don't get to hear Reckoner. I don't get to hear whatever else.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I wonder... I don't know. I mean, who knows? They could be like, no, that'd be weird. They're not like that kind of band either. They're not like a Jack White who like, I mean, he goes out and tours and he plays like Dead Weather songs. He plays White Stripes,
right?
Rackin' Tours. I couldn't picture Radiohead doing that where they're like have a new iteration, but it's like
they need Ed.
Them playing like.
Who's gonna stand here and be tall during this song?
True, and good looking. Yeah, they need a good looking.
Well. Other Tom is kind of filling that void too. That I'm just gonna briefly recap. No, Tom, the drummer of the Smile.
From Portishead,
Walker's concern was that maybe they wanted a bloke
so condescending
who had like a full head of hair, and
I feel like there's some anti-bald prejudice happening.
Yeah, could be.
I'm really excited though, and who knows what's going to happen. But they did say on that interview that you got to have something to put out an album, don't you? Which I was like, oh yeah, so they really don't have anything, or anything new is maybe going to the Smile. But time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, I remain cautiously optimistic. I kind of think if Radiohead was done, they might tell us they were done, and as long as they haven't done that, there remains the opportunity for them to put something out. I think if they knew that they didn't ever want to release new music, they would have publicly ended the band.
Yeah.
And even if they have no plans, they're leaving the door open.
They're probably like everybody else and just like, kind of gather themselves after the last like few years.
Sure.
Know? Maybe they're just kind of like, what do we do? I don't know. I could see them just maybe... Yeah, it might be a minute before we know anything.
Well, it's weird too because sometimes I'm a big Daft Punk fan.
Oh, nice!
And they broke up
just one day. Yeah,
yeah, and it was also like you didn't have to tell us this. Like you hadn't put out a new album since 2013,
right?
And then in 2021, they're like, we broke up.
Hey, we're no.
That's
what
led
I to that decision.
That's how I see Radiohead going. If we're making predictions, but. The way of Daft Punk.
Yeah, sure. Like those crazy French robots.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up here, Aaron, we've talked about different points in your musical career a little bit during this, but is there a way that you would tell people to get your music that I know it's I'm interrupting myself here. When you put all your music on Apple Music and Spotify, I want to say a year, 2 years ago. That was awesome. It was a lot easier to get some people into your music through that, but I would like our listeners to seek out your music in the way that is your preference. Is there a place that you like them to go?
Preferred would be my Bandcamp if you can or want to. That's I think it's Bandcamp /Aaron Ross. Either way, if you just type in Aaron Ross on Bandcamp, it should pop up.
Doesn't have the middle name on there, or
no? It's just Aaron Ross.
You're also the third result on Google. If you type in Aaron Ross, it'll be Aaron Ross, Nevada City, and then Bandcamp will be one of the top results too.
Oh,
for
cool.
listeners.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also on all the streamers. Currently not on Spotify, but that could change. I have a few albums on there. Just not all my albums are on there at the moment. But on all the other ones and YouTube and all the good stuff.
And there's a vinyl pressing coming out of that newest one. Where can folks get? Are you still with Dowd Records?
Yeah, that album's on Dowd Records, and it's coming out hopefully June, and they could get it on dowdrecords.com. Also, when it is out, it will be linked to my Bandcamp site. We'll have it as well. So, and then of course live shows.
Yeah, sure. So, what's your website?
It's Aaron Ross. I think it's bandcamp.com/Aaron Ross.
Okay, great. What about Instagram? Can folks follow you on there?
Yeah, that one is I'm at Aaron Manuel Ross, and that's just my. I don't have a page like an artist page, so it's just my personal page. But that's where I post all my like show stuff and
there you go,
new stuff. So.
And listeners, Aaron, as we said, towards the beginning of this, he is our cousin. That's just how we got this guy on the podcast. No. Unabashed fan of his music. So if you like Radiohead, that means you like good shit. That means you should check out Aaron Ross's stuff.
Absolutely.
Man.
Yeah. Zach, any closing thoughts or questions that you want to get out there?
No. Thank you for being here, though. This has been a lot of fun talking about songwriting and learn a little bit about how the sauce is made and speculating. And I just really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with us.
Yeah,
man,
and come back later when we're looping back around through Radiohead's discography or when this podcast has existed many years into the future and we're talking about the fourth Smile album.
Or the new Radiohead album.
album. Okay, I'm going to just make a commitment
yes.
right now. If there is a new Radiohead album, I would love it if you would come back to talk with us about it. You know?
Will do, man.
All right. That's on wax, so he is obligated. Yeah. Aaron, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And folks, thank you for listening. Once again, this is in case you're just tuning in, this is Idio Talk, a Radiohead podcast. I don't know why I'm resetting 2 hours into the podcast. I guess we'll do the plug where we say give us a 5-star review on iTunes. If you are enjoying the podcast, tell your friends about it. Tell the Radiohead lover in your life that, hey, you've heard of the Greenwood Brothers, but have you heard of the Glenn Brothers talking about Radiohead? Get them into it.
The Brothers Glenn?
The Brothers Glenn. We really appreciate you folks listening. And once again, why do I keep saying once again?
Until next time?
I feel like I've known how to talk pretty well through this conversation until just now.
We can throat clear reset.
Okay. All right. Radiohead. Thanks for listening, folks. I have been your host, Walker Glenn.
And I'm Zach Glenn.
And let's get one
Aaron
from
Ross.
Aaron Ross. All right. We appreciate you listening, folks. Have a lovely rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Idio Talk is a Glenn Brothers production. Get in touch with us at idiotalk.podcast@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at idiotalk.podcast. Thanks for listening to